Hey there. I'm going to try something that I haven't tried for quite some time, and that is just to talk to you and I have some things on my mind. I've thought about doing this more often, about just kind of taking a topic, something that's happening, and just fleshing it out. So we'll see what happens. I want to talk today about St. Luke's Hospital is suing me, and why I haven't been participating in the court process. You might have seen in the news yesterday that I had a hearing. It was like a hearing where the St. Luke's was trying to get the judge to find me in contempt or something to that effect. So anyway, I'll give people a few minutes to get on here before I get going into some of the meat of this. But St. Luke's Hospital is suing me, also is suing Diego Rodriguez, and they're suing my campaign, Ammon Bundy for Governor, and they're suing People's Rights as well, and I think Diego's marketing company. And it is over this baby Cyrus case. And if you remember what happened, so I'll kind of break this down. Baby Cyrus is the grandson of Diego Rodriguez, who's a good friend of mine. And we've been very vocal about what Governor Little is doing and how, the things he did by locking the state down, and now he's lying about a surplus and about how he didn't lock Idaho down and all these other things. But so we've been very vocal about that. And that's put a target on our back. And Diego's grandson, Cyrus, baby Cyrus, his parents, Levi and Marissa, took baby Cyrus into St. Luke's Hospital because they had basically started introducing solid foods to baby Cyrus, and he wasn't doing well with it. He was doing fine with breastfeeding, but as soon as they started introducing solids, he wasn't doing good with it, and it would cause him to start to vomit, and he would go into spells of vomiting, and then he would get dehydrated. So they were worried about him, and they took him to the hospital because they were afraid that he was too dehydrated, because he had a pretty good spell of vomiting. And of course, when this had happened, they'd put him back on breast milk, and he'd be just fine. And when they get in there, they weigh baby Cyrus, and they begin to automatically act. And they look at, baby Cyrus wasn't vaccinated, and who knows what else they look at. But all of a sudden, now, in my opinion, they look at the parents, Levi and Marissa, who are just wonderful, wonderful people. I mean, amazing, good, honest people. This is their first baby. They look at them as enemies for some reason, or somehow like they're doing something wrong because they're not following the typical protocol of what the hospitals and what the general society believes they should be following. So they began immediately to kind of have this undertone of threatening the family because baby Cyrus is little, like a few ounces underneath the recommended weight. Well, I have to say, I could lose a few pounds. There's no doubt about that. I could probably lose 20, 30 pounds and be in pretty good shape. But right now, I weigh more than both Marissa and Levi together because they're just little people. Little skinny people. Beautiful people. I mean, they look like models. They're awesome. But they're just little people, and they probably together add up to about what I weigh as one person. So of course their kids are going to be little, and baby Cyrus is a little guy. They go in the hospital, and now they have this box, this check box, that if he's not the weight that they say he's supposed to be, no matter what genetics are or anything, then all of a sudden now he's under threat of life to thrive or thriving. And it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And so, Cyrus or Marissa and Levi were kind of like confused. They didn't feel right. They knew something wasn't right. they pushed to get out of the hospital, and then they threatened if they did that they would call CPS. So that they said, okay, don't call, there's no reason to go there. We'll stay one more day. And they stayed one more day, and then the hospital couldn't find anything wrong with him, never had an issue. I guess he got hydrated, and then they left the hospital. But they wanted them to go back to an appointment with the doctor and do weigh-ins. And they basically said, if you don't do this, we're going to call CPS. It was all under threat of CPS. And so, I think the next Monday, and I might have my days mixed up and all, but these are the facts. And so it might have been the next Monday. I think there was a weekend between. They go to the weigh-in appointment, and they do that appointment, and they do another one, I think the next day. And then I think they might have even done a third one. And then on the fourth one, and again, these facts, they might be as far as like days or weekends and so forth. They might be a little wrong, but this is what happened. And so they wake up the next morning and they have an appointment for a weigh-in. Imagine, they have to do this now every day, or they're threatened that their baby's going to be taken from them. These parents are the most loving parents you could find. They love this baby. In fact, I'm afraid this baby is going to be spoiled when he grows up, because he's the first grandson. He's got loving aunts and uncles, and their parents love him so much. And he is a cute little guy, so he's not hard to love. And he gets so much attention and love that he's probably going to be spoiled. He probably doesn't need so much love and attention, to be honest with you. I can't believe I'm saying that, but he's very loved, and that's the point I'm trying to make. And so they get up. Well, Marissa doesn't feel well, so they call into the doctor's office, say that we're not going to make it. No one was there. They just left a message. I don't know if it was before the opening or whatever, but they leave a message. And then next thing they know is, and I know there was the doctors tried to reach out to him, and I don't think they made connection. There was other thing, but either way, the doctor then called CPS. And the next thing you know, knocking on Diego's door actually are two police officers demanding that they see baby Cyrus. Remember, there was never anything ever found wrong with baby Cyrus. And he was loved. There was never accusations of neglect, none of that. This was just, at this point, this was just them doing their thing. And so they send these officers, they weren't in uniform either, knocking on the door, and they inquire, and basically Diego says they're not here, which they weren't there. And they lied about that later in their report. They said that they were there, and they weren't. They were not there. Baby Cyrus was not there. Levi and Marissa were not there. And they tried to get in, and Diego's like, no, you're not going to search my house or whatever. And so they leave. And then they put what they call, I can't remember exactly what it is right now. It's an acronym where they put them on the lookout, be on the lookout. And it's a bolo, be on the lookout. That's what it is, a bolo. And basically for Levi and Marissa's truck. Well, Levi, Marissa, the aunts and uncles, Diego, and his wife, they all go to a friend's house for dinner that night. Not thinking much about it, thinking, other than the visit from the police was weird. And by the way, that friend is a ex-police officer that retired out of California and moved here. So it's not like, there's contempt for the police or anything like that. It's just they were actually having dinner at a retired police officer's house. And he's a good friend of theirs. And they leave his house, and it's probably like 10 o'clock, 10:30 or so, and they're driving home. And they get pulled over because of this bolo in Meridian, or close to Meridian, and they're at a gas station, a Chevron gas station. And I'm not kidding you. There ends up being probably, I would say, that according to the video, it's got to be close to like 20 officers that surround them. And it's disgusting. I encourage you to go to Freedom Man Press, freedommanpress.org, I think it is, Freedom Man Press or freedomman.org. And there's videos there, the way that these officers are acting. In fact, it makes me so upset and so bothered that I am surprised that these officers haven't been shot acting like this. That people just haven't lost their minds to the point where they're not going to put up with this type of activity and just do open violence against them. And I'm not promoting that. In fact, I'm just opposite of that. That's what I've tried to prevent by doing what I've done. But the way these officers acted is just about justification for taking their lives. And it's very sickening. And ultimately, they falsely accuse the aunt. They think she's the mother. They drag her out of the vehicle. They handcuffed her, slam her against the car. They slam the father. They handcuffed the father against the car. And then they finally figured out that the mother is in the back seat with baby Cyrus. And they con her into, and they say that she can go with them to the hospital. They're just going to do a checkup. And they con her into the ambulance and then rip baby Cyrus out of the mother's hands and then handcuff and arrest the mother for obstruction of justice. And I mean, it's really sickening. You've got to go to freedommanpress.org or freedomman.org, and you've got to go watch those videos. You'll see that you'll have to navigate. I don't know where to navigate. But you'll see them. It's sickening. It's sickening, and it's extremely bothersome that these police officers are doing this, and they're still today active police officers and never been in any way reprimanded. Nothing. So anyhow, this goes on. Well, during this process, this is kind of where I come in. During this process, Marissa, the mother, calls me, and she can't get a hold of me on my phone. It's after, this is like close to 11 o'clock. So she calls my wife. My wife immediately comes in, and we're on FaceTime. So we're hearing and watching this whole thing, and I'm like trying to guide her through it the best. I'm like, the main advice I told her is go with the baby. Make sure you go with the baby. Go with baby Cyrus. Do not let them take baby Cyrus without you. You are a nursing mother. He is having trouble with any type of other foods. He needs you. He needs you to nurse him. He needs you to care for him. He needs you. He's already, a little guy. He needs you. Go, make sure you go with him. You have a right to go with him. You are the mother. You have done nothing wrong. Make sure you go with him. And so she was doing her best and really did amazing job in this video to try to stay with her little baby, 10-month-old little guy, sweet little thing. And they rip the baby out of her hands, handcuff her, and book her in the Ada County Jail. Just pure wickedness. And no one, I don't see how any mother or any father could condone what these police officers did. I do not. I think if you condoned what they did, you have such an extreme bias that your children are probably in danger because you would put the state in front of your own children. Otherwise, you can't condone what these officers did. It's a terrible thing. And the way they did it with the contempt and the force is just sickening. Sickening. They should be ashamed of themselves, completely ashamed of themselves. So anyhow, because of all this, I'm aware of what's happening, and they tell me that they put him in the hospital or in the ambulance, and of course they're not going to tell. And I just kind of feel or kind of sense that they're going to take him to St. Luke's and Meridian. And so I get in my vehicle. I'm in Emmett. I get in my vehicle and I start to head there, but I don't go to the Chevron gas station. I'm headed to St. Luke's Hospital in Meridian, just kind of on an instinct that that's where they're going to end up. Well, I get there about right after, like just minutes after the ambulance gets there. And this is the sickening thing. So I get there, and we didn't know any of this, but the plan was, and this is all in the court documents. You could look it up. I could show you. It's all in the court documents. But they weren't taking him to the hospital to get checked up. they had another family there that they were going to take him out of the ambulance, give it to another family so that they can go take him to another home. And that's exactly what happened, what was going to happen. It's clear in the documentation. They weren't there because they were worried about, baby Cyrus's health necessarily. It wasn't there in the hospital to make sure that he was okay. It was the transfer of taking that child from his mother and father and giving him to another man and woman or whatever it was, family, to take home right from the ambulance. Well, because we showed up there and we made such a big stink about it, demanding that they give that baby back to their parents who love and care for them, they decided that it was too risky to give the baby Cyrus to this family, that it would be putting them at risk, and it was, all of these things. So they ended up keeping baby Cyrus, and they took him to the hospital in Boise, St. Luke's Hospital in Boise. And we followed them. So we had really good, I had people following them. And I was there, of course, at the Meridian Hospital. But we ended up following the ambulances. There were several, and we had them followed. And we ultimately made the conclusion, which we were right, that baby Cyrus ended up at St. Luke's Hospital in Boise. However, I was there basically telling these officers what, that what they're doing is so wrong, and they need to give that baby back. And hopefully they just snuck up and arrested me. Now, to be fair to the situation, the hospital asked us to leave the ambulance bay area and, step back, but they never asked us to leave the property. And they trespassed me. And the claim is that they told me to leave the property, and that's just not what happened. Anyway, they arrested me, took me to Ada County Jail, and booked me in, and I bailed out, and I was in there with Miranda, the aunt, Marissa, the mother. I was in there with my campaign manager because she got arrested too, just for being there, just to make sure, and also, of course, I was there. So the mother and the aunt is also being booked in the jail right in front of us. And this is the situation. So anyhow, so I was given, now, just so you know, they dropped the charges on the aunts because they completely falsely charged her. And they dropped the entire CPS case. So they said, hey, this wasn't right. That's ultimately what they were saying. This wasn't right, but so we're dismissing it. But they haven't dropped the obstruction of justice charges on the mother, on Marissa. And, of course, they didn't drop charges on my campaign manager, Wendy, or on me for trespassing. So they continue to prosecute us. Now, that is how this all came about as far as the trespassing charges. And those are criminal charges. And so I have been participating in this process, and it's, basically I hired a couple lawyers, and they've been kind of going through the process until we get to trial. And I have been, defending myself because on a civil case, if you don't show up, that it's failure to appear, and they send the sheriff after you or whatever, and they arrest you for failure to appear, and then there's, all of that. So I've been participating in that process, although I don't believe that I'm going to get any type of justice with an Ada County jury. Now, there are some conservatives in Ada County, and this is, a heartfelt thing when it comes to parents, but I don't know if they can put aside their contempt for me, because most of them are liberal-minded. They have a leftist, ideology, and I'm enemy number one in Idaho, so they just hate me, and I've seen that in several trials that I've been in. So anyhow, what happened is then the next day, I began to push, and I began to rally people to come to the hospital in Boise. It wasn't just me. Diego was using his influence. Other people were, blasting it out. But I was blasting it out, and through my campaign and also through People's Rights to come to the hospital, that this is wrong. And I just want to give you a little perspective. There's this type of thing, if you will, and you have to, I mean, you just have to think about the practicality of what just happened. They stole a baby from loving parents with no justification, really no excuse actually at all. Never once did they say that they could find anything wrong with baby Cyrus, never. But they justified taking baby Cyrus from loving parents and then actually giving him to another family. Now, so I end up the next morning with about 400 people in front of St. Luke's Hospital in Boise. So we're talking about no sleep, no nothing, right? We're there, I think 9 o'clock in the morning, we're there, and there's 400 people, and we have a press conference. And I've done this type of thing several times, and Diego's a great, spokesman, extremely capable person, and they still have his grandson in the hospital. And so anyway, we began to put this ton of political pressure, all the influence that we have nationwide, and began to put all this pressure on him. But Diego was mostly the spokesman. I did a few videos and so forth. Diego was mostly the spokesman. And ultimately, St. Luke's Hospital was like, we don't want baby Cyrus anymore. And the CPS agents were like, we don't want him anymore. He was like a hot potato. And so finally, after an unprecedented short amount of time, they call the family up and say, hey, come get baby Cyrus. And they went and got him. It was 6 days. Typically, it takes a couple months for this process to happen, to get the baby back. And so, and I've been told by many, many people. So I'm not an expert at CPS, but I've been told this situation doesn't happen fast to be able to get babies back. And it did happen. 6 days is still a long time. The health of baby Cyrus was very concerning. They didn't let him breastfeed for like 3 days until they were afraid that baby Cyrus was on the verge of like death. And I do believe he was on the verge of death. They finally let Marissa come in and breastfeed after 3 days, but they still wouldn't let baby Cyrus come home. And finally, 6 days, we get him back. We celebrate, and we put a ton of pressure on CPS, actual agents, the judge, the doctors, and because I believe in personal accountability. It's the only way to get people to change their direction. You can't do it any other way. It has to be personal accountability. You have to feel accountable personally. And so that's what we do, and that's why I do it. And it works. I've done it many, many times. It works. I'll continue to do it. And I mean what I say when I do it. I'm not just, trying to bluff somebody. Now, there's some other pieces that maybe I'll talk about what was happening on the background, because I was really holding a tremendous amount of patriots back from coming from all over the country that were wanting to basically clean house. Clean because this was wrong. And let me put this in perspective. One of the most insulting things that Native Americans would do, one tribe would do to another, is steal one of their babies and then take and try to raise them in another. It caused wars. It was extremely it was like the ultimate, insult from one tribe to the other. And ultimately, that's what has happened here. And people saw and recognized what was going on. They saw how the political ties, the connections between Governor Little, St. Luke's, myself, and Diego. They all saw this. But then just the pure, wickedness of this. Just that pure wickedness. And they were going to come. They were asking me and indicating through other, means of communication. And I was getting this feedback that they were planning on coming to Boise and doing whatever it took to get this situation worked out. And I kept saying, no, don't come yet. Let us try to go through this process. Give us a little bit of time to try to put political pressure on it. Don't come in and just, wipe out, something like Mad Men. Let's try to get this done right. Although I completely believe that they were justified in it. I really do. However, I felt it wasn't the most prudent thing. And so we did our thing. We put pressure on the right in the right places, and ultimately they finally, pretty quickly realized what was happening, that it was just going to keep growing, and they gave baby Cyrus back. And then a few weeks later, they dismissed the case and dropped the charges on the aunt, Miranda, but haven't yet dropped the charges on the mother. So anyway, we have a great victory, right? We've got baby Cyrus back. The case is dropped. It's a great victory, and we go, back to life. I go back to campaigning. I took 3 weeks off during, it was very difficult because we had to completely just clear our schedule and our itinerary, and I just felt like I had to do this. I couldn't campaign while this little baby was being taken and away from this family's hands. And so I went back to campaigning, and then shortly after that, I find out through the media that St. Luke's is suing me, and they're suing me for defamation. And I just thought, wow, this is a perfect example of evil being called good and good being called evil, because here these people stole a baby from loving parents, and it's pretty much through their dismissal of the case and dropping, giving the baby Cyrus back and everything, is pretty much acknowledged that it was a wrongful act to take a baby. And us who stood up and exposed that they now sue us. Now, they're suing me and Diego for defamation. They're saying that we defamed them. And the one thing I will say is that everything I said, I believed. And everything I said, I believe still today to be absolutely accurate and true. There's only one little piece when I said that in one of my videos, I said that the doctors and the judge have done this hundreds of times. Now, I believe that. I do believe that. I look at their workload. I look at CPS. I look at how they work together. I do believe that. However, that is one thing that I don't know for sure. But I did say that. But I still believe that. I believe that if we were to look into the evidence of that I could prove that statement. However, I don't know for sure. So that would be the only thing that might be in question of me saying something that was not absolutely accurate. But I still believed. And now, what they're saying is that we did this to get financial gain. Because you can't sue someone for defamation unless there's some type of gain. Like a corporation gains by defaming another corporation. So there has to be that element. So they're saying that we did this to get public support, to get donations, and they defamed and caused St. Luke's to lose money. And actually, it's not just St. Luke's. It's actually the CEO of St. Luke's that is personally suing us, St. Luke's, and then one of the doctors. Now, I just want to give you St. Luke's claims to be a non-profit organization, right? They claim that. Yet the CEO who is suing me, the CEO of St. Luke's, makes $18.2 million a year. Yes, that's $18.2 million a year. And I believe that benefits and bonuses are on top of that. I don't know exactly sure. I'm certain benefits are. But his paycheck is $18.2 million. I did the math. It's like over $1,400 an hour that he makes. And he's suing me, saying that somehow I caused him financial harm. And St. Luke's is as well. And so this lawsuit came across, and there's all kinds of just crazy false accusations and saying we did this. And about 90% of the accusations are just flat unfactual. They're not even factual. Then the others, they've tied with facts, but they're aligned incorrectly to create a narrative that's not correct. So that's what they're doing. And I had to make a decision. Here I am. I just took 3 weeks off the campaign, and like fighting lawsuits and in the courts. I'm already fighting my trespass case, right? Because I have to. And I had to make a decision, after much prayer and contemplating, like, can I spend, tens of thousands of more dollars trying to defend myself, and hundreds of hours in the middle of this campaign? It'll completely distract me from the campaign. And I believe that the campaign, running for governor, is more important than allowing myself to be distracted into these courts where I'm spending all my extra time trying to defend myself, and all in my extra money trying to pay for attorneys and legal fees to defend myself as well. And I began to basically weigh this and look at my options. And I decided that the best course, because of the circumstance, is to just allow the court to go do their thing, allow these guys to do their thing, and ultimately the judge, because it's a civil case, will order a default judgment against me, and then St. Luke's will try to collect, 70. They say it starts at $75,000, so they'll try to collect $75,000 from me, People's Rights, and Ammon Bundy for Governor campaign. But the campaign's going to be over. They're not going to be able to collect on that. People's Rights isn't an entity; it's a network. It's a network of people. It's not a legal entity, so they can't collect from that. And so they may be able to, try to get a judgment. They'll get a judgment against me and try to collect against me. But again, that'll take some time and processes, and I'm willing. So I decided that the best thing to do is just not allow them to distract me, not go into the courts, not spend all that money. Just allow them to do what they're doing. Not really allow, because it's my way of really defending myself. Just let them give a default judgment against me, and then I'll deal with it after that. Meanwhile, I'm running a very solid campaign, meeting with thousands of people all over Idaho and doing these really important things, not being pulled into the court. So yesterday, that wasn't good enough for St. Luke's and the CEO of St. Luke's. That wasn't good enough. So they told their attorneys to file for contempt charges against me. Well, this is where it starts to get criminal, where it's contempt, so they can order my arrest, throw me in prison until I give them what they want, till I participate. So they're mad that, because I won't go play in the sandbox with them. They're all mad, and then they want the teacher to force me to go play in the sandbox. And I refuse. I refuse to go play in the sandbox with them. So they're trying to use the fort when the easy path, or the correct legal path, is to just get a default judgment against me and then try to go into collections. But they don't want to do that. They want to force me to participate, force me. And this is a civil case. This is not a criminal case. This is like your neighbor suing you. And then your neighbor saying, well, we don't like how he's proceeding, or he's not proceeding the way we want. So we want you, judge, to go throw this guy in jail until we get what we want. Well, interesting enough, yesterday and today I got some mail from the judge, from Judge Lynn G. Norton. And I guess she's the judge in the case. I've never met her. I saw a picture of her just because someone sent it to me. And she sent me several documents. So, Judge, I did get these documents. I did get them. And one's from Ammon Bundy for Governor, one's for People's Rights Network, and the other one's directly to me, Ammon Bundy. And they came in 3 different things. And it is a motion, or a court document, titled Order for Entry of Default Judgment Against Ammon Bundy for Governor, and People's Rights Network. So the process of default judgment is happening, but yet on top of it, now they're trying to find me in contempt because I guess I won't play with them in the court. Well, so, I mean, that's why. That's ultimately the answer. And, I feel good about getting that off my chest. And a lot of people have wanted to know why I haven't been participating. And if you look in the media, the lying, fake media, they're making this look like it's a civil case. or excuse me, a criminal case, and that I am, failing to appear. There is no such thing as failure to appear in a civil case. But they want you to believe that, I'm not participating because of whatever reason they think, and that this is a civil case, and that somehow, talk about defamation, right? These people are, they're just wicked people. They really are people that have an agenda, and they want to push their agenda through media rather than just reporting the truth. And true reporting is pretty much out the door. So I'm asking you to take this video, to share it. Share it with all your friends. Who's going to be offended if you share this video? No one should be offended, even if they don't like me. Share it with all your friends. This is why. This is the truth, and it has nothing to do with, I am more than capable of going and fighting and proving my points and doing all of that in court. Diego is too. And Diego, I think, is going to fight. I don't know what he's planning on exactly, but I think he is going to fight. I think he's going to fight them and show them that everything he said was accurate, and that they have to try to, defend themselves against what he said, because they're the ones that sued us. And so, anyway, I just didn't feel like I could. I didn't feel like I could leave the campaign trail and go and spend all this time and effort and money in the courts. And so that's where I'm at. And I hope that the judge makes the right decision, that I haven't participated, so she's going to have to enter a default judgment against me. I hope that she's just and reasonable in that, and that the case is closed. And she doesn't try to use her powers to find me in contempt or any of that garbage, because she shouldn't. This is a civil case. And what is the result of me not participating? It's called default judgment. And she should go through that process, and this case should be over, and they can then try to collect, and I can continue in my campaign, and there should be no arresting or warrants for my arrest, or there shouldn't be any, contempt and throwing me in jail. There shouldn't be any of that. This is a civil case. And I have chosen not to participate so they can get a default judgment if they want and move on. And so that's where it needs to be. And, I feel good. I feel like I got this off my chest. I thank you for listening and watching. And I ask you again to share this video, get it out there. I think it'll go far and wide if we can, get it to our friends and outside the algorithm of Facebook. So thank you for your time. And I plan on doing this again with some other topics when it comes to my campaign. So thank you very much.